If you're searching to buy a small business, one of the most important decisions you're going to make when you're kicking off your search is, are you going to do it alone or are you going to do it with a partner? In this video, we're going to talk through the positives and negatives of each path. First, let's answer the question, why do some people want a partner when they're going to buy a small business? Some of the reasons are that buying a business is going to be a lonely process. Sometimes it takes 1 to 3 years. A lot of your friends and family probably don't fully understand what you're doing when you're going to buy a small business. You're reaching out, getting a lot of rejection from sellers and brokers. And so that long, arduous process oftentimes leads people to think, oh, this is going to be a lot easier with a partner. You also might think that you're not fully equipped to go out and buy a small business by yourself because you don't have the skill set. And so you're going to look for someone that has a complementary skill set to yours in order to fill in the gaps and increase your chances of success. These are very real benefits. Let's take a second to look at what some of the hard data from the Stanford study on search funds actually says about partnerships. According to the Stanford study, partnered searches are down to just 19% of searches as of 2024 versus over 40% 2 years prior. They also show, however, that the rate of return on partnered searches historically has been higher than the rate of return for solo searches on average. Then again, looking the other way, the outlier returns, the ones that have done extremely well, 5x return, 10x return, almost all of them have been solo searchers. What this tells me when I read into it is that you really need to look at it from your personal decision making. You're not going to be able to look at the numbers and say conclusively, by doing a partner search, I'm always going to have a better rate of return, or by doing a solo search, I'm always going to have a better rate of return. Look at yourself and your own characteristics to see, are you the type of person that's going to do well in a partnership? And you're taking the steps necessary in order to make that partnership as successful as possible. When you're determining whether a partnered search is right for you, I want you to ask yourself these 3 things. First, how well do you handle conflict? When you get into a conflict with someone, are you avoidant of that conflict and you just bury it down inside and you're afraid to bring anything up? Or maybe you're the complete opposite side, where when you get into a conflict with someone, you're easy to get hot-headed and you're going to be very aggressive in that conflict, which also can lead to a lot of problems in a partnership. Ideally, you're the type of person that's able to bring up confrontation in a partnership quickly before things get into a big mess, and you're able to bring them up with a level head without being too timid or too aggressive in that conversation. The second thing you need to ask yourself is, how important to you is control? Being in a partnership means that you're going to be sharing in the financial upside, you're going to be sharing in the emotional upside of doing well or doing poorly in the acquisition. And you want to make sure that you're the type of person that is comfortable with sharing that and sharing the decision-making that comes along. And third, and finally, you want to ask yourself, how have I dealt with partnerships in the past? Are you the type of person that always gets walked over in partnerships and gets taken advantage of? Or maybe just look at yourself in your history when you're doing sports as a child in high school and in college. Did you always find yourself more comfortable in sports like running, swimming, wrestling, where you were the person that got all of the upside because you were the man in the arena? Or were you the type of person that preferred basketball and football and volleyball, where you have a team in place and not all the responsibility is hanging on you? If you do decide to go with a partnered search, you want to understand some of the things that are likely to make a partnered search break down. Just like when you're getting married, you want to align on some key core things in your relationship. When you're getting into a partnered search, you want to have some key things down as well. Some of those things are going to be, what are your risk tolerances? You don't want one partner who's very timid and not willing to take any risks, while the other partner is gung-ho, willing to put it all on the table. You also want to be aligned on how much time each of you is going to put in the partnership. You don't want one partner putting in 40 hours a week while the other one is putting 10, without that being clearly defined from the outset that that's what the arrangement is going to be, and that each of you are going to be compensated appropriately. Third and finally, you want to have clearly defined what your work style is going to be. Who's going to be responsible for what in the partnership, what times you're going to work, where you're going to work. All those things need to be clearly defined, because if they're not clearly defined from the outset, it's likely to become problems later. Once you have found someone and you've determined that you agree on how you're going to work, who's going to put up what money, the way that conflict's going to be resolved, you need to make sure you're putting all these things in writing. Make sure that this document clearly outlines how you're going to work and that you're both very much in alignment on that relationship. Otherwise, once conflict does arise later in the partnership, you're not going to have this ironclad document that you've both agreed to in order to reference back. Another thing you want to think about when you're buying a small business in a partnership is that you want to make sure that business is going to be a lot larger than the business that you buy as a solo searcher. This is because you now are splitting everything. Your equity is going to be split, your salaries are going to be split, and the business just needs to be naturally larger in order to support both of you. So don't get pigeonholed into buying a smaller business that you would have bought as a solo searcher. Make sure you're thinking bigger in a partnership. Now let's run through a few super actionable tips and tricks that you can utilize to make your partnership as successful as possible. The first one is don't call yourself co-CEOs. There's a reason that when you look at the largest companies in the world, you see one CEO. When you look at the leaders of countries, there's one president, there's one king. There's got to be one person that's ultimately in charge and has the decision-making power on certain things. It's okay for you to have division of responsibilities and maybe one person has more responsibility and more decision-making in one area and another person has more responsibility and decision-making in another. But at the end of the day, it's very important there is one person that is the leader of this partnership. Next, you want to make sure that you're maximizing the benefits of having two people in this search. A pitfall that a lot of people fall into is they go into this partnered search and then they both end up just doing the exact same thing together every single day. Basically as if they were one person. They go to the same meetings together, they get on all the same calls together, they go to the same events together. And as a result, there might be a marginal benefit from both of them being there with a little bit more brain power in the room, where you can really start to get scalability and make 1 + 1 = 3 is by using your respective skill sets individually and only coming together when it's necessary. Yes, you guys are partners, but you don't always need to be in all the same places. Use the advantage that you have of being two separate people and divide and conquer when you can, and then come together when it's needed. Another thing I would suggest you do in a partnership is have a regular cadence for getting together outside of just the day-to-day minutia where you're gonna be talking to each other. This could look something like a monthly check-in with a defined agenda of your progress in the search, progress on certain conflicts that have arisen throughout the process, and maybe you have a quarterly cadence as well where you make sure you're having those conversations outside of your normal business location. So you're not in the office that you normally meet in, or you're not just at Zoom. You're getting an offsite, you're getting together, you're freeing your heads up in order to connect on a different level and make sure the partnership's moving in the direction you want it to. If ultimately you've looked at partnered search and you decided this is not the path for me and you decide to do a solo search instead, I still recommend doing a few things that will help you get some of the advantages of a partnered search while doing it solo. A few of these things would be having a peer group. Like I said at the beginning, one of the benefits of doing a partnered search is that doing a solo search is going to be a lonely process, and having someone there when things get tough or just to talk to or bounce ideas off of is going to be very helpful. So if you have a peer group of maybe other people that are also searching to buy a small business, or other people that have been successful in growing, running, or searching to buy a small business, it's going to be helpful to have that wealth of knowledge and support system for when times get tough. I'd also suggest if you're doing a solo search, still having that monthly check-in cadence, even if it's just with yourself or maybe with a trusted advisor. That way you can check each month, are you making progress towards your goal, and what type of challenges are coming up, and have you made progress towards those as well. These are just a few of the ways that you can get a lot of the benefits of a partnered search without having to give up equity in a search. So ultimately, as you can see, you could be successful doing a solo search or a partnered search. What you really need to determine is what is the right path for you, and then make sure that you're putting the right processes in place to have the best chance of success in either avenue. If you're gonna go a partnered search, make sure you're the type of person that likes working in a partnership, that you're clearly setting expectations with your partner, and that you're buying a big enough business. If you're gonna go the solo search, still make sure that you're putting some things in place like peer groups and mentors that give you some of the benefits of a partnership that still allow you to have that full autonomy that you're probably looking for. Let me know what you think. If you decided to do a search to buy a small business, did you decide on a partnered search or a solo search? Which one was better for you?